And so the designers did, I think, an excellent job in building what is clearly a beautiful section of the system. But I don't think unless you look up in the skylights, you'd have a feeling that you were underground if you didn't know it. With the addition of the artwork cases and the special lighting, I think people will find that it's a real pleasant experience.
Still don't believe that Nixon is guilty. And he finally sort of broke down.
With an amendment to the Constitution so that each got a $1,000 signing bonus. Everybody.
One is financial, the well-being of our children. Do we as a society have the ethical and moral right to spend money today and send the bill to our children tomorrow and destroy their future? Senator Boschowitz's response is no. We're going to protect our children. Strong the belief is in the fundamental institutions.
Very much, and Governor, it's nice of you to come up here too. Thank you.
Their names are Mike, Mark, Steve, Jim, and Callis. Just a normal bunch of guys until it gets dark. That's when they turn into Motor Booty Affair, the funkiest disco group this side of the 70s.
Oh, freak out! The freaks, so she's freak out! Oh, freak out!
Now, legend has it this group came here from the planet Funktar in an effort to restore our long-lost disco groove. So far, the mission's been pretty successful. I mean, how can you miss with music from groups like...
Wild Cherry.
Wild Cherry? I knew those guys.
Right on. KC.
KC?
Yeah. The Bee Gees.
Yeah.
Earth, Wind, and Fire. The Commodores. You got it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right. The Brothers.
Oh, that's the way I like it. That's the way I like it. That's the way I like it.
We caught up with a group at the Stone Coast Halloween party. The music was great and the crowd was crazy. Nothing but non-stop dancing all night long.
Shake, shake, shake. Shake, shake, shake. Shake your booty. Shake your booty.
I guess the point of this disco revival is just to have some fun. I mean, where else can you wear platform shoes, do the hustle, and talk like it was 1976?
There are two words that describe the whole experience, and they are right on.
Now, these guys try to get new fans every time out, and they don't take no for an answer. If you don't shake your booty, they bring you up on stage and put you into the motor booty. That'll get you shaking.
Turn it on!
So anyway, if you'd like to return to these days of dance fever and disco down, you might want to check out this Motor Booty Affair. But be warned, you could get hooked on this stuff and stay stuck in the 70s forever. It's a groove, man. In Portland, Bob Elliott, News Center.
Linus, you've got to get rid of that stupid blanket.
Just like Linus, we all need our security blankets, sometimes. Miss Coffer's second graders at St. John's School in Duluth are participating in Project Linus. They're making quilts to give children who are in difficult situations, such as battling cancer or recovering from severe burns.
They all can relate to needing a security blanket or a stuffed animal or something like that. And part of what this school is about is helping other people.
The second graders earned each quilt square by reading a book outside of class. So far they've read, well, let's just say it's a lot.
We read a lot of books, and she showed it on the board, and we couldn't remember how many books we read. It was like 300 and something. But it's kind of a big number, so we can't remember it.
Now they're putting the finishing touches on the quilts.
You tie 3 knots, and then you cut off the extra
The extra string. We're tying them 3 times and then we're going to give them to the people that are hurt or sick.
A homemade security blanket can give an unfortunate child hope and courage, even a little love.
I never thought it was such a bad little tree. It's not bad at all, really. Maybe it just needs a little love.
A lot of fun here at the Graceland Plaza starting at about 9 o'clock.
Coming up next, this is the Spirit Mountain Float. Here comes a thing for everyone, sledding and tubing in a brand new laser luge run.
Wow.
Laser luge?
Laser luge.
They had the
I thought
snowmaker
that
out
was
for
like
this
outpatient
one.
stuff.
Look at that.
I think the chairlift is running on there.
George, you're a luger, aren't you?
Actually, I'm a downhill skier. The luging I keep to a minimum since most luges collapse.
He's making snow. Look at that.
No, I never expected it and never expected to come across something like that.
Get a sense of awareness out in the community that child abuse is a problem here in the Twin Ports and that everybody needs to do their part to help out and to try to protect the kids in our community.
We're distributing the 18th, 19th, and the 20th of this year. So anybody that wants to come down and see or help out, we'd be glad to have you.
We have about 150.
Authorities received a couple of tips which led them to the area north of Greenwood Lake. The wreckage was first spotted by the Coast Guard in a helicopter early in the morning.
Our standard search pattern that we had concentrating on an area paid fruit, and we found it that way.
The Air National Guard sent in snowmobiles and were unable to reach the site because of thick snow and a heavy, wooded, swampy area. Search crews and equipment were picked up and flown into the crash site by helicopter. The Air National Guard was finally able to send in this large bombardier on an old logging road to groom the path to the crash site.
Through swamp, and I can see in the bottom of the crater water. The crew of the helicopter reported that they saw the engine and a piece of the aircraft that they positively identified.
The plane now rests 3 miles from Highway 2. The first person into the crash was a bioenvironmental specialist. They sample the air and ground before search crews are allowed in. The Air National Guard has sealed off 1,500 feet around the F-16. It now becomes a national defense area protected by the National Guard. Crews were out early near Greenwood Lake, heading back to the crash site to try to locate their comrade. They went into the deep woods by snowmobile and this bombardier. Helicopters brought in equipment as needed. This command post will help shelter crews during the search. The first set of search crews spent all day in these woods and experienced problems with Mother Nature, making for a very long and difficult search. The biggest obstacle in this search has been the weather. Waist-deep snow has made it very difficult to access the crash site, so crews are now using snowshoes to make it in. Blowing snow has reduced visibility dramatically, and the cold temperatures have limited how long crews can stay at the site. Volunteers from the 148th Fighter Wing helped in this search. Lake County supplied more snowmobiles and medical help if needed. It was a long, exhausting day for everyone. The conditions have proven to be a bigger challenge than they thought. The mood from the returning crews was noticeably somber, even from Colonel Stromquist. But everyone tried to keep their spirits high until they found some definite answers about Major Peter Woodbury. Near Greenwood Lake, Kim Steininger, Channel 6 News.
Overall, they're coming in really good shape. Like I say, some of them aren't even staying here. The dogs don't even appear to be tired. It's amazing the conditioning on some of these dogs.
I think the principal skill is enthusiasm, and that's more a quality of character than a skill. And stick-to-itiveness, of course, because if at first you don't succeed, you always want to try again.
That's true.
And a spoon, and a shovel.
At Duluth Nettleton Elementary today, the goal was understanding Dr. Martin Luther King's struggle for civil rights. What better way for kids to begin to understand Dr. King's struggle than to bundle up and head outside to participate in today's commemorative march.
We have several purposes with activities that we're doing today. One is that Martin Luther King was truly a very significant person in the struggle for civil rights here in the United States and worldwide as well. And We want to spend time today taking time with our children to remember some of the significant contributions that he made in his lifetime.
The hallways of Nettleton School are covered with posters depicting the contributions that Dr. King made to the civil rights movement. We asked students to explain what they had learned about Dr. King and what message he was trying to send.
Usually you learn about what happened in his childhood and stuff like that, and then you just hear about all the things that he did while he was older.
Civil rights is like for all people all around the country and the state and this world, and like people always have to struggle.
These kids are about the same age as their parents were when Dr. King was leading the civil rights crusade. But at least for a time today, it was less a part of history and more a part of their lives. In Duluth, Jason Poole, Channel 6 News.
If we can save one baby's life through this, it's all worth it for us.
State investigators spent 7 months looking into allegations of maltreatment at this Hermantown elderly care facility. The just-released report confirms those suspicions. An I-Team 6 investigation shows that the county has had concerns about Green Acres for some time. An earlier I-Team 6 report documented investigations in 1993 and 1994 by the St. Louis County Social Services Department. The details of the latest county findings have not yet been released, but investigators tell us many of the same complaints were looked into again. In 1993, the county issued a correction order citing failure to give prescribed medications, failure to provide care, assistance, and supervision for residents, failure to report suspected neglect, and failure to report the death of a resident. Then in 1994, the facility's license to provide adult foster care was put on probation as the violations continued.
And concern about Green Acres goes back at least as far as November of 1993. I-Team 6 obtained this letter written by a doctor at the Human Development Center.
The letter lists several concerns the doctor had about the welfare of vulnerable adults living at the facility, including complaints of residents being given wrong medications and caregivers lying that they've taken residents to see a physician when they actually hadn't. The doctor writes he was convinced by consistent reports from multiple different trusted staff that there must be some substantial truth to at least a number of the reports. The doctor wrote that he believed resident care was being undermined in a number of ways, putting nurses, doctors, and residents at immediate potential risk.
County investigators had several options as they considered this latest report documenting resident neglect at Green Acres.
They can immediately suspend a license and move residents to a safer facility, revoke a license, giving a facility a period of time to move residents, temporarily suspend a license, or put a facility on probation, ordering it to meet certain requirements and within a period of time. Based on the strength of the county investigation, coupled with the state documented neglect, the county is recommending that Green Acres' license to provide adult foster care be put on probation for 1 year with strict requirements for some changes in operating procedures.
Say their recommendation for 1 year of probation for the facility has been turned over to the State Department of Human Services for final action. At Green Acres in Hermantown, Barbara Riles, Channel 6 News.
The Minnesota Department of Human Services has spent the last 7 months investigating this facility in Hermantown. Their investigation followed an I-Team 6 report on complaints of the neglect of elderly residents. The just-released state report confirms maltreatment of a vulnerable resident. These drawings show what Green Acres looks like on the inside. Though we weren't allowed to take our cameras in, we're told it's beautiful. But the stories being told about the care of the residents here is far from beautiful.
They were never helped to the bathroom at night, but they were scolded for having a wet bed the next day.
when I would leave at night, she would ask me to have everything by her bedside because she knew nobody would be coming in during the night.
Well, I couldn't get out of there quick enough.
Complaints like these resulted in an extensive county investigation which hasn't yet been made public. One situation that drew special attention from state investigators involved a resident who suffers with dementia. On a freezing night last February, the woman slipped out of Green Acres unnoticed by caregivers. She was outside with bare feet wearing nothing but a nightgown for at least 30 minutes. Investigators said because caregivers knew the woman's mind wandered, they had an obligation to watch her more carefully. The report concludes the facility was negligent. The investigation also found that caregivers didn't get professional medical help for the woman who suffered severe frostbite for over 3 hours. Investigators say caregivers should have called for medical help much sooner. The woman had to be hospitalized for skin grafts. Facilities like Green Acres are required by law to fill out incident reports. I-Team 6 was given a copy of the first draft of the frostbite incident report, written shortly after the woman was brought back inside. Employees pulled it out of the garbage can. As you can see, it's 3 pages with lots of detail. But the final report is much shorter with much less detail.
They were altered, trying to get a story straight so they didn't look bad.
The state report says their investigators were given 2 different versions of what actually was going on inside the facility the night the elderly woman slipped out into the freezing cold unnoticed. Altogether, the state lists 4 areas of major concern at Green Acres. It includes failure to report suspected maltreatment of a vulnerable adult, failure to immediately report a serious injury, failure to report that a resident showed a need for additional community health or social service intervention, and failure to complete a background study on all staff persons. The state report has been turned over to St. Louis County Social Services for a recommendation for action. At Green Acres in Hermantown, Barbara Riles, Channel 6 News. State investigators spent 7 months looking into allegations of maltreatment at this Hermantown elderly care facility. The just released report confirms those suspicions. An I-Team 6 investigation shows that the county has had concerns about the facility for some time. An earlier I-Team 6 report documented investigations in 1993 and 1994 of Green Acres, now called Senior Living Incorporated by St. Louis County. The details of the latest county findings have not yet been released, but investigators tell us many of the same complaints were looked into again. In 1993, the county issued a correction order citing failure to give prescribed medications, failure to provide care, assistance, and supervision for residents, failure to report suspected neglect, and failure to report the death of a resident. Then in 1994, the facility's license to provide adult foster care was put on probation as the violations continued. And concern about Green Acres goes back at least as far as November of 1993. I-Team 6 obtained this letter written by a doctor at the Human Development Center. The letter lists several concerns the doctor had about the welfare of vulnerable adults living at the facility, including complaints of residents being given wrong medications and caregivers lying that they've taken residents to see a physician when they actually hadn't. The doctor writes he was convinced by consistent reports from multiple different trusted staff that there must be some substantial truth to at least a number of the reports. The doctor wrote that he believed resident care was being undermined in a number of ways, putting nurses, doctors, and residents at immediate potential risk. County investigators had several options in dealing with this latest report, documenting resident neglect at Green Acres. They can immediately suspend a license and move residents to a safer facility, revoke a license, giving a facility a period of time to move residents, temporarily suspend a license, or put a facility on probation, ordering it to meet certain requirements and within a period of time. Based on the strength of the county investigation, coupled with the state documented neglect, the county is recommending that Senior Living Inc.'s license to provide adult foster care be put on probation for 1 year with strict requirements for some changes in operating procedures. County spokespeople say their recommendation for 1 year of probation for the facility has been turned over to the State Department of Human Services for final action. At Green Acres in Hermantown, Barbara Riles, Channel 6 News.
Alcohol, dark, overdriving. His sled went 50, and they said that the
I suppose
tops
you
of
hit
the,
that snowbank and just
launched. The tops of the brush, 6 foot up, anywhere near bar closing time. This guy supposedly hit 300, and they said that the
I suppose
tops
you
of
hit
the,
that snowbank and just
launched. What are the contributing factors for all snowmobile accidents? High rate of speed, alcohol, dark, overdriving.
We must improve our transportation infrastructure. We have pushed for years to complete Highway 53 while improving Tower Avenue and other roads in the city. We have consistently worked to maintain and improve our harbor. Our airport has been our weak link. This weakness will become our strength in 1.5 years. Less than a year have given it 150% to make.
It's a good stance for him to take before the jury.
People around that area, some were supporters of O.J. Simpson, some were opponents of O.J. Simpson, and it is not at all unusual for
One of the trademarks of Northland winters is the pothole. They come in all shapes and sizes, small, medium, and I just dropped my tranny. It's something we cope with every year, and it's a topic of conversation for many of us.
But I've heard some pretty bad noises coming from the shocks. So nothing yet. I've always been afraid of bending a wheel or perhaps flattening a tire, but it hasn't happened so far. I try to avoid them, but some of them can be pretty bad.
Northland potholes aren't going unnoticed by road maintenance crews. In Duluth, workers have been out in force doing battle with the road craters. But the fix is only temporary. In time, the asphalt gets forced out by freezing water in the cracks.
Right, we're just taking the meanness out of all of them. They won't stay because it isn't that type of material.
In some cases, motorists have completely changed their usual routes just to avoid that one menacing car shaker.
Sometimes they do. Depends on how deep the pothole is. Other than that, there's a few out there.
Going up 21st can be awful, kind of avoiding an obstacle course there. I think they tried to fill them in a couple weeks back, but they just come back really quick.
Workers say they'll repair the worst first. Any pothole that swallows a car will get the top priority.
What's cash? Right now. Cash that you got.
This is what every bank teller, clerk, or employee fears, being a victim of a robbery. But what if you were a witness to a crime such as a robbery? How well could you identify a suspect? The authorities say not very well. Police say that people who witness a crime often give wrong descriptions of a suspect or cannot give one at all.
And it's disappointing to us in law enforcement to find that people say, geez, I don't know, I didn't pay any attention.
We wanted to see how true this is, so we decided to stage a robbery in front of a group of unsuspecting students here at the University of Wisconsin-Superior. We wanted to see how well they could identify a suspect. We chose Dr. Gary Cavellis' political science class. The students had no idea what was about to take place. They thought we were doing a story on education. Only Dr. Cavellis knew what we had planned. A half hour into the class, Eric, our phony robber, comes in and grabs the professor's bag. The entire robbery takes only 4 seconds, about the same time it takes for an actual robbery. Slowing it down, you can see the students look up as soon as Eric enters the room, but they all just sit there. Then most just go back to what they were doing, ignoring what just happened. In fact, it takes almost a minute before a student asks if the professor just got robbed.
It's somewhat alarming to find that people actually witness something. They're not the victim of, let's say, an armed robbery. They're a person that's on the sidelines. They're watching something happen, and they should be curious. They should say, you know, why is this guy wearing a mask, or why is this guy running next to me?
We asked the students immediately after the robbery to describe what the suspect looked like.
He had I believe it was Dallas Cowboys jacket on, kind of a Letterman style, had like, it was dark blue with caramel colored sleeves. He had dark hair and a baseball hat. I didn't get to see what was on that.
Most of the students focused on what the suspect was wearing rather than what he actually looked like. We then showed him a lineup of 5 men, including Eric, our suspect, and asked them to pick the crook. We got conflicting descriptions.
The guy was about 5'10", 5'11". He had a hat on, about pulled over, about eyebrow level. He had a chubbier face, complexion wasn't clean.
Did you look at his face at all?
Yeah, he was darker skin, dark hair.
Police say it is common for people looking at the same scene to remember things very differently.
What we find so much with people is that they have no idea how important something is until after it's happened.
So were many of the students able to identify the correct suspect? To find that out, you'll have to wait until tomorrow night. Kim Steininger, Channel 6 News. Would you be able to identify a suspect or pick one out of a lineup if you were a witness to a crime such as a robbery? Police say too many times witnesses cannot. They often give wrong details or a wrong description of a suspect.
Your mind will focus on the danger aspect to you or the threat to you and not on the other details because they're not relevant to you at the time.
So we tested this out on Dr. Gary Cavellis' class at the University of Wisconsin-Superior. We set up a phony robbery and didn't tell the class what we were planning. Only Dr. Cavellis knew. Our robber, Eric, came in, stole the professor's bag, and ran out. Many of the student witnesses watched the crime and then just went back to what they were doing. So we asked the students to take notes and write down the suspect's description on a sheet of paper. Taking notes can be the key to remembering details later. The sooner you write it down, the more you will remember. So the students jotted down what they remembered from the mock robbery. Later, we showed them a lineup of 5 men, including our suspect, Eric. How did they do? Well, not very well. Even though they took notes, we're all sitting relatively close to the suspect and saw the lineup only a half an hour after the crime had occurred. Almost half the class chose the wrong suspect. Suspect number 5 was chosen by almost a quarter of the students, but he's innocent. Suspect number 1 was popular, even though he had a goatee. Our suspect, Eric, was clean-shaven. Suspect number 4 got a few votes, but again, wrong guy. Eric is suspect number 3. Just over half of our students correctly identified him, but many thought he was much taller.
It was a young male, like 5'11".
The guy was about 5'10", 5'11".
Eric is actually 5'7". Many thought he had a darker complexion.
He was darker skin, dark hair.
And others just didn't pay attention to his face at all.
And what about his face? Didn't really see that either.
Psychologist Dr. Kent Newman says there's a reason for this.
Suppose he's about the same size as your brother-in-law and maybe has the same color hair. You may tend to go on and describe him even more like your brother-in-law. Your mind will sort of fill in these things.
If we can get people to be a little more cognizant of their surroundings and take notes And from a memory perspective, remember something unique about the person.
If you're ever in a robbery situation, police say keep yourself safe, but still be aware of everything around you and details such as how a suspect talks. Are they right or left-handed? Do they wear rings? How about a gold tooth? It's those small, unique details that could give police some good tips. Kim Steininger, Channel 6 News.
Sure.
We feel that by having a light that activates when the rear door opens and pedestrians or passengers are leaving the buses and becoming pedestrians, that this will bring to the attention of the drivers, hopefully behind the buses, that there's someone on the ground and they'll slow down.
The calls and donations started coming in almost immediately after the community heard about Mike and Ebony Wenzel's tragic story.
We've had people coming to us, just members wanting to give. Our members we've just had a really good outpouring of money and contributions for this family.
The Cloquet Co-op Credit Union is accepting any money donations at any of their branches. Meanwhile, friends and neighbors are rounding up donations of their own of such things like clothing, toys, and furniture. Mike Wenzel's former employers are contacting companies they work with to make contributions too. Companies have given gift certificates, building supplies, and money.
Mike's family. Has been from the day he started with us. Even though he's not working with us anymore, he's still family.
The Wenzels say they can't believe the community's response.
Wonderful. We didn't expect to have anything like this and the support we're getting from everybody.
Wonderful. I mean, it's beautiful to think that all these people and people you don't even know would pull together and do these types of things for you. It's just fabulous. It's overwhelming. We can't even begin to describe the thanks and gratitude.
But the Wenzels need one more bit of help for someone to come forward and tell police who trashed and torched their home. In Duluth, Kim Steininger, Channel 6 News.
We're just introducing this line of tackle into the North Shore Duluth area, so we brought it over and we've got it all reduced below horse sale price for right now.
Cuttlefish is just...
Well, I think they'll learn what the Grand Canyon isn't really just a big hole in the ground. That there's a lot to it, a lot of history, and a lot of things to learn about it, besides enjoying a fun movie.
the summation of all grandeur, or the grave of the world.
Those are mine.
We suspect that they deserted the car here and took to another car that had been parked next to it. We believe that these tracks that are in the snow are probably those of the getaway vehicle.
No, you know the name of that one song? Is it your bed? Yeah.
So you have a lot of them, so you could miss one real easy?
Run over everybody.
We got rid of Sean.
What do you think, Ernie? Maybe you want to see you in action. We could let you loose after all these dogs and watch you chase them. I wonder if he sees his reflection.
And we're here as part of our function to help them determine just what may have been misappropriated, how much may have been misappropriated, and if they have possibly implication of any employees. And
Your car has just rolled over. You're pinned behind the steering wheel and your doors won't open. Who can help you out of this mess? Duluth Mayor Gary Doty. No, he's not a superhero, but thanks to the crew at the Duluth Fire Department and Rescue Squad, he has a better understanding of their job responsibilities.
We set up a scenario and we just pretend that the mayor was in the car when there was a car accident, and we went through procedures of how we popped the door open. We showed flapping the roof here, pulling the steering column, how we would remove the car from him, and then we slid him out onto the long backboard and that's a device we use to help stabilize the back and secure him so that he can, until we move him to the hospital.
As part of the mayor's plan to spend one day each month at a different city office, Gary Doty watched and learned as the pros demonstrated the techniques that save lives in emergency situations.
When people think of firefighters, they think of somebody going out and putting out a fire, but there's a whole lot more to it than that, and a whole lot of training that goes on a daily basis around here to protect people of Duluth.
The day's agenda was as busy as any in-office. From simulated accidents to battling fire, the mayor was up to the challenge.
He's been doing a great job all day. This morning we were going over our SCBAs, which is our breathing apparatus, and we had him walking on the apparatus floor with that on, and he's been catching on real quick to all our techniques.
So if you're ever short-handed, will you have him come along to assist?
Well, he'll be there, it looks like. He's interested in it.
Seeing their daily job challenges firsthand, the mayor has a new perspective on a day in the life of an emergency responder.
They have to be prepared for everything. They may only use it once a year, every 2 years, 3, 4, 5 years, but they have to be prepared, and they keep up with it. So I appreciate what they're doing, and it's been really helpful to me to see what they're doing.
Last night's city council meeting in Babbitt was one of the last hopes for Lucy Lassie and her pet pig Pixie. An ordinance prohibits farm animals from the city, and Lassie was hoping to get that ordinance changed so she can keep the pot-bellied pig. Well, those hopes were dashed when the council voted not to change the ordinance. Now the city zoning officer will set a deadline for the animal's removal from the town site.
I don't know how they can come into my house and take her away. I just don't know how somebody can do that.
Pixie's problems probably stem from her owner's honesty. The pig's existence became known only when Lassie tried to license the animal.
And Mrs. Lassie, I have a letter here for you. You were never approached to get rid of your animal, but now that you have chosen to expose your animal, to take it out of the closet, there's no alternative but to enforce the ordinance.
The plight of Pixie the pig has transcended Babbitt. Support for Lucy Lassie and her pet are coming in from across the country. This isn't sitting well with some Babbitt residents who say they aren't against Pixie personally. They say the law is the law, and a pig today could become chickens tomorrow, and who knows what else the next day. In the meantime, Lassie has hired a lawyer who is checking on the legality of the ordinance. It looks like the perils of Pixie could continue for a while to come. In Babbitt, I'm Dave Anderson for Channel 6 News.
We didn't have any injuries, and there was no Murphy Oil equipment injured in the incident, and we did not slow down production at all during the event.
Very in-depth overview of what primarily what is finances. Your son of the finances.
These is the emphasis of
Yeah, right. And you would be looking for the
Special use is a special designation that would basically restrict the use of the property to recreation, protection, or would not be used for commercial purposes, those types of things.
That's impressive.
Drug busts this week in the Northland totaled 31 grams of crack cocaine, 29 pounds of marijuana, and a sizable amount of methamphetamine for a total worth of over $65,000.
We hope that this will continue as far as, not that the drugs keep coming to Duluth, but that at least we become part of it and seize them.
Many of those arrested are in their teens or early 20s, and police officials say this means drugs are invading the schools.
One of the things we find is, especially with marijuana, the people that are selling it are doing it mostly to people their age.
Authorities found $20,000 worth of marijuana stashed underneath a stuffed Easter bunny.
So if we end up, in this case, arresting a 17-year-old, that is the roughly the age bracket that is going to be the recipient of this. And again, it goes right into our schools.
A 25 and 26-year-old were busted for $4,000 of methamphetamine, and they were with juveniles when the arrests occurred.
There are younger people involved in this. We know that. The connection of the Esquivel House with the Carlton House shows us that there are young folks involved.
And $30,000 of marijuana seized from a 20-year-old Duluthian.
We believe that this was targeted to people that were in their early and late teens. It's not uncommon that this, especially marijuana, finds its ways into our school. And the individual that was selling this, we believe, was supplying teenagers.
Police officials say the drug problem needs to be a concern for the entire community. Residents and parents must be aware of the situation and take action. For example, involvement with programs such as DARE, the Drug and Alcohol Resistance Education, or other types of community groups. Angela Wang, Channel 6 News.
So I thought you put your sandwich in it for lunch. Yeah. Well, then the dishwasher went into the automatic apartment, and the guy was able to, hold him down. I wanted to slap his picture up there and say, look out for this creep. Yeah. Run like hell. I think he was going to come in and kill me. So that's why I get to see people like that.
The investigations, Campbell just ended up.
They're expensive, so I thought you put your sandwich in it for lunch. Yeah. Well, then the dishwasher went into the automatic cycle of. It bothers me sometimes. Like the guy that busted into the apartment and the guy was able to, hold him down. I wanted to slap his picture up there and say, look out for this creep. Because I'll tell you, he'd scare the daylights out of me. If he came into my house, he may only be wanting to rob.
Medical mix-ups do happen. Wrong doses are given, wrong strengths, wrong patients, and in this case, the wrong prescription. Medical mix-ups happen across the board. St. Francis Home South in Superior is accused of putting a splint on the wrong ankle of a patient. Now the Miller-Dwan drug mix-up ended up being fatal. 61-year-old Don Oss of Hayward was mistakenly given a dose of potassium chloride.
Everyone has potassium in their body. It's in all our cells. It's a normal constituent of a IV solution. The problem comes in when you have concentrated potassium that's given rapidly.
And that's what happened in this case. So how could something like this happen?
Well, all the medications, injectable medications, come in small glass vials. They look very similar. They have different colors on them and different colored caps. But it's with the wide variety of medications available, it's certainly easy to make a mistake or to grab the wrong one.
Pharmacists at St. Luke's and St. Mary's Hospital say even with every safeguard in place, with checking and rechecking prescriptions, humans make mistakes, and that's why medical mix-ups happen.
I think the more common occurrence is that an incorrect or a medication error is made, but most of the time it doesn't cause severe harm to the patient.
This is the first time a patient has died as a result of a nurse's error in Miller Dwan's 63-year history. Officials from St. Luke's and St. Mary's Hospital say they can't remember ever having this type of accidental death.
I guess I'd just like to say that from all of us at St. Luke's, our hearts go out to the patient and their family and to the people involved at Miller Dwan. It's a serious thing that happens. We know that it could happen here or it could happen at any healthcare institution, and we're sorry that it happened there.
There's no word right now on whether a lawsuit will result in this death. In Duluth, Kim Steininger, Channel 6 News.
She moved out because she couldn't tell.
We're better planned than and prepared than what we were last year. So I think that we should be able to handle it. We have some people coming from Red Cross to help us set up our temporary shelter at the community center. They should be arriving there about now. And like I said, it hasn't risen too fast for us to be able to keep up with it. So.
Oops, sorry. System.
Oh gosh. So heavy.
The water moves so fast. Yesterday you could barely even see it on the streets, and they're thinking it's going to get tons worse.
Like a foot deep.
Yeah, got lots of stuff in there. Most of it's off the ground.
The Clarks say new culverts in their location would alleviate their problem, but of course, it would probably take an awful lot of new culverts to solve all the flooding problems throughout Minnesota and Wisconsin.
You know what's going to happen, so you make plans to do what you have to do. And like we had to shut our furnace off on Saturday night because by that time the water was up into the furnace because the furnace is in the basement. So now we have no heat. We're just heating it with little heaters and stuff.
Breckenridge is a city that's paralyzed, and it remains under a state of emergency tonight. The mayor says no sightseers are to be allowed anywhere driving within the city. and if they're caught, they face being arrested and a $500 fine. And the National Guard, which has set up blockades around the outskirts of town, they're enforcing the no driving restrictions.
I live over at 224 South 6th Street.
24, it's all closed up in there. It's restricted area. They don't want any civilians. It's all emergency vehicles.
Even residents of Breckenridge who left town for the floods and were lining up today are being kept out. The reason? Only large tractors and the like can navigate many streets. In many places, the 1 to 3 feet of water has turned to ice.
The flood's bad enough, but this ice, it just makes it just about impossible to get around any place. You know, it's just so tough on machinery.
Yes, even some of the larger vehicles like this National Guard truck have bogged down in the water and are freezing in. Where the water has receded on the edge of downtown, these men struggle to chip away ice from the wheels to try and move their semi.
Wrapped her out in there and then she froze. We'll get her rocking and get a payloader in the front and pull her out. She'll come out.
Yesterday, this stuff was axle deep in here. I'd say we'd lost a foot of water in here, which is a real good sign.
But tonight, flash flood warnings remain in effect for Breckenridge and the counties around it. That's because of the ice jam about 5 miles out of town. Water's backing up on the Boy de Sioux River. When the jam lets loose, water in town may rise back to the level of yesterday's record crest. But before higher water comes again, people are working as fast as possible to pump flooded businesses and homes. A full-time job.
I've been pumping about every 20 minutes, so I just kind of have to make sure I don't fall asleep and let it get behind me.
But as city and county crews struggle to clear roads and brace for higher water again, the mayor doesn't see how there ever could be a repeat of what's happened here this past weekend. What with the elements teaming up against Breckenridge the way they have.
When are you going to get a flood and 3 to 5 inch rain and a blizzard and then freezing, unusual record low temperatures all at the same time?
As for city services, the sanitary sewer system is down here and phone service is completely out. The only way of communicating is with cell phones. So for this city of about 4,000, city leaders are trying to get this place back to normal, but they concede they got a long ways to go. Back to you.
Crosswalks are only as safe as the people who are crossing in them and how carefully they've checked for vehicles. Both the motorist and the pedestrian has a burden when they're at an intersection or at a crosswalk.
Once it's gone, you can never replace this type of thing. You can plant other trees, but it's not going to have the same effect. The rainforest is a total ecosystem, not just a bunch of big trees.
I thought of just those kinds of flowers. I just wanted to make it sunny out and bright and pretty. It means a lot to me because you can do things for the earth that you usually don't do.
Homemade ice cream, pick up on the packs, and then after that they're going to go bird hunting in one of the classrooms, walk down memory lane.
Just to get along and see what's going on and if there's anything I can do to help.
Oh, yes. Ducks. Yeah. They're fun. These fancy ones. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you can do a lot of stuff on this internet.
Dog looking at me. White dog, what do you see? I see a black sheep looking at me.
The days of lounging at home and playing with toys at daycare will end soon for many Northland students. Summer will fly by and the rigors of kindergarten will begin. Like these youngsters in Superior, students all over the area are getting acquainted with school through Kindergarten Roundup.
and they need to try out new things, and of course they're growing and they can do more things. So we give them a little space to do that.
Our doctors, artists, and photographers of the future seem content to be at school, but as teachers point out, it can be a different story for parents.
I think a lot of parents are nervous. This is their baby, and here they're sending them out into the world. It's a big day. It's a big milestone. Yeah, I've seen more than one mom with tears in her eyes when they leave the room.
While the parents meet with the school staff, stories and artwork are just part of what keeps children occupied. Ah, there, I've almost got it. Wow, I learned how to stay in the lines. As I found out, reporters were not exempt from completing assignments.
I get excited about a new class and seeing the new ones come in, and I also realize how much they grow in a year, comparing them to the kindergartners that I have now.
I guess so. Have you got enough shots of this now? I'm done.
The phones have been ringing non-stop at the Northland chapter of the American Red Cross. Employees and volunteers are answering questions from people who want to donate and from residents who are victimized by the flooding.
Well, it was just starting to fill with water at that time, our neighborhood. Everything like to the north of us was full of water by that time already, you know, so we were kind of the last dry spot.
Ron and Sandy Lundy are from East Grand Forks and are staying with their daughter in Superior. Not only is their home flooded out, their business burned in the devastating fires last weekend. They came to the Red Cross to get an update on the flooding. They say the people in Grand Forks are relying on the Red Cross and their donations to get through a tough time.
Oh, it's wonderful. Wonderful that there's a, some place to go no matter where they end up, because people are spread all over.
Paul Knight is a pastor in Grand Forks. He's staying with family in Duluth, and he's seeking financial assistance from the Red Cross. He wants people to keep in mind that even though material things have washed away, the community spirit has not.
The main thing is people. And we, as I understand it, we haven't had any lives lost yet. And so those things aren't swept away, but even though some of our houses are, I mean, we still have each other. And so we will fight back. And we're going to need help to do it.
The wonders of science are on display at the University of Wisconsin-Superior. College professors and students are introducing high schoolers from across the region to fields like biology, chemistry, and physics.
Well, for Science Day, we've got an idea here of bringing new students onto campus, and so it's a recruitment activity and a chance for us to show off what our own students are doing.
What the students are up to is anything but ordinary. Ever seen a pickle undergoing electrolysis?
This is our electrolysis of a pickle. This is the electricity, the energy is exciting the sodium atoms in the pickle, and the energy is coming out in the form of light.
The kids loved this experiment, but they had some probing questions.
Cool. Can you make it blow up? That's what the big question is. Can you make it blow up? But I probably could, but I don't think I will.
If an electrified pickle sounds strange, how about a mothball lava lamp? Interactive demonstrations like these are helping showcase career options.
What would you tell me happened? What did you see? What happened? Change color from what to what?
Clear to blue.
How about, was there kind of a yellow in between?
I hope to become professor of biology.
So, why is that?
I just find it interesting, very logical.
Yeah, this one isn't a species. The man species just have these straps that just come over the top. But this one.
That goes until noon. We start from 9 till noon.
One more thing for the clean and green then, is that
Thank you. Thank you. And they just haven't done that. The reason that we're doing cash and looking for donations is because I spoke with the people from the Salvation Army, and their indication was that the supplies are coming in well, but what's really needed now is money.
So he's just really chowing up because he knows it. Rocky Mountain goats are very unusual in captivity. Don't always do very well, but in our climate, I'm sure they'll adjust quite well.
I think this is turning out. Mix aluminum with iron oxide and start a reaction with burning magnesium, and you have the recipe for shooting hot iron around a school auditorium. You also have the recipe for creating enough smoke to send your audience running. When they weren't running from the fumes, the audience was wowed by the scientific displays of the Marshall School's senior physics class.
Well, I just think science is cool because all this stuff happens around us, and science is figuring out the why, and once we know the why, then we can apply it to all kinds of other ways, and that's where we get technology and all the stuff we can do with that.
The Marshall students' demonstrations ranged from the physics of karate to the law of conservation of angular momentum, a law loved by meteorologists and figure skaters, if no one else. The goal of the science night was to interest young people in the field of science, and from the reactions of the shell-shocked audience, it was a success. At the Marshall School in Duluth, I'm meteorologist Dave Anderson from the Channel 6 Weather Center.
In each one of those situations, unique things happen. And we try to look at the things these people did right and the things that they did wrong and gear our tactics so that we don't make the same mistakes that they do. And if they did something that works, we try to employ that in our training. So it's a learning experience.
Right now we need donations. Money donations are the greatest thing that we need right now, where we've met our needs as far as food, clothing. So the greatest thing now is money.
So they will have an opportunity to watch videotape or listen to audio tape if we are being videotaped. We'll just put it out. We have to talk about
Because I think there's a lot on the table here with this issue. I think more than maybe perhaps a lot of us realize. It's an emotional issue, and it's not going to be one that's easily done.
Physical limitations so I guess I just bring that up as a concern that I have, and maybe moving down to that topic of the schedule.
Told him there was a farm in Cotton, Minnesota where women, like his wife, were hiding.
She told me that.
I didn't have a witness. My brother had left the room at the time, but I would stake my life reputation on it. But that's what she told me.
No, he told me about this farm, and I know of women who have a farm that he's talking about. You know, I know of this farm that he's talking about. He brought up this farm, not me.
Pence says she doesn't know Cynthia Roram, and there is no underground network.
This idea that we hook you up with the underground just isn't true. We don't know. We don't have contact names. We don't, and that's what Alan thinks. I have no idea what's true and what isn't true in this case, except that there is no such thing as a big underground.
But Alan Roram still believes, partly because of police reports which indicate Cynthia told her boyfriend she went, quote, underground.
I'm sick of being lied to, and I'm sick. I just want the truth, you know?
Something that in this case may never be found. In Duluth, Andy Skugman, News 6.
And so in many ways, Duluth is a childhood home for me, because while I was in this family, there are 8 female importantly, that which we come from, and that I love them all very much. But we live in a culture that always emphasizes, in many ways, Duluth is a childhood home for me, because while I was 26, I was probably developmentally 16 or 17. In my mother's family, there are 8 female siblings, all of whom went to graduate school or
It was devastating. It was just unbelievable. When you drove through the neighborhoods, it didn't seem to look like it was that bad when we first got into town, but when you got down next to the river, it was unbelievable. It was like the houses were picked up off the foundation, shook up, and then set back down.
People are really putting out more than 1 or 2 items. I'm getting closer to a half dozen to even a dozen items at several places. I have a volunteer that's been assisting me, and he's been helping, walking ahead of me, picking up stuff. And
Thanks. Good job.
I'll meet you at
High school students are taking a class about landscaping and greenhouses. They're growing plants and flowers as part of that class. And here is the result of their hard work. The pansies are planted, the geraniums are growing, and the fuchsia is flowering. For some students, this has bloomed into more than just a class project.
I have a job with Ingwalls already, in Ingwalls Garden Center. I think with the knowledge I gained here, I think that's what kind of got me into that.
But for many of the students, this hands-on growing project was a way to fill a credit.
Well, I needed a science credit, and I don't really like biology or any of that stuff, and I like plants. I've been taking care of them since I was little at my house.
These students have been growing these plants and flowers in this greenhouse since January, when the weather outside was quite cold. And even still in May, it seems like this is the only place where spring exists.
I've come in here last semester, which I had this class, and snow would be piled up on the top, you know, and it's great, dark in here. And Spring.
This spring class has even grown outside the greenhouse.
We get to bring plants home too, so now we have a whole house full.
When the semester is finished, these flowers will be sold. In Duluth, Kim Steininger, Channel 6 News.
When a specific day is set aside like this, it gives us an opportunity to talk about some things that we don't talk about, or if we don't talk about them, at least to think about them and remember our mortality.
Mortality, unfortunately, strikes many law enforcement departments. Bayfield County Deputy Dick Parquette was the latest area officer killed in the line of duty. He was shot while responding to a routine call in Cable last September. Irv Clemens' life ended in August of 1993. He tried to rescue a senior citizen held hostage and was met by a spray of gunfire. The latest Duluth police officer to be killed in the line of duty was Gary Wilson. On April 9, 1990, Officer Wilson and his partner, John Hartley, responded to a shooting at the Midway Bar in the West End. The suspect fled to a nearby hotel where he was living. The officers were outside the hotel room when the suspect opened fire through a wall. Officer Hartley was injured. Officer Wilson died the next day. These tragic incidents are a grim reminder of how dangerous the officers' jobs can be. And this plaque at the Duluth Police Department of Officer Wilson reminds his co-workers every day.
It is just always in people's minds. I mean, we go to work. I've been carrying a gun for 25 years, and the thought of having to use it to save my life or someone else's just never goes away.
It's on everybody's mind. It's on my mind daily, being the boss and worrying about what may happen to an employee. There's no doubt.
Law enforcement officers say it's important that days like these are set aside to remember those who risk their lives for our safety. On September 17, 1993, 16-year-old Stephanie Schofield went joyriding with 3 friends. It was the last time Stephanie would ever get in a car. Her friend Sean lost control of the vehicle, traveling at 113 miles an hour. Sean, Rachel, and Jeff survived. Stephanie died.
I think I had like 5 or 6 beers, so. You know, we still really hadn't gotten started yet, really. The night was still young was our idea.
Motor vehicle crashes are the #1 killer of kids ages 15 to 20. In more than 35% of the cases, alcohol is involved. That's why law enforcement authorities are focusing on this time of year with their Safe and Sober program.
In this particular time of the year, April, May, June, we concentrate on the weekend efforts looking for prom parties and any youth and alcohol related type of incidents.
While many parents believe their children do not drink, nearly 2 out of 3 high school seniors nationwide admit drinking alcohol in the last month.
So we are out on an overtime basis, working diligently to detect these types of violations and take the appropriate action before we see a tragedy, particularly during this prom season, graduation season. It's a time of celebration, not of tragedy.
And before officers have to make that dreaded call in the middle of the night.
It was late. It was like 12 o'clock, 12:30 at night, and the phone rang. And I don't like to answer the phone late at night anyway. She said that Stephanie had died and she was killed in a car accident.
Maureen Tallarico, Channel 6 News.
This is Igor Chernyshev, a music student from St. John's University in Collegeville, Minnesota. He plans to go to a summer music festival in Maine to further his education this summer. The catch? He's short on money. To remedy that problem, he put on a benefit concert at Duluth's Temple Israel yesterday.
I'm going to be practicing with a professor from Juilliard School. His name is Martin Cannon, and hopefully I will be able to improve my playing and learn some new repertoire.
Igor wants to become a professional musician, and that's a logical career choice for a man who comes from a musical family. Natives of Russia, his mother Olga is a violinist and his father Sasha holds a doctorate in music. A degree in music like his father's is probably in Igor's future.
Eventually, I'm planning to get a PhD in music and work as a professor in one of the colleges or universities.
Igor says becoming a music professor at one of our area's universities is a possibility, and that gives Northland music fans something to look forward to. In Duluth, Dave Anderson, Channel 6 News.
Yard eventually you get to cover State Park. So that aspect of it surprised me. I mean, it really.
She sounded fine.
I'm sure she was just relieved to see my parents.
Yeah, the government.
Yeah. I'm sure that they.
It's like this incredible weight is lifted, and you just want to sit down and cry and thank everybody and thank God, and there aren't words to describe the feelings when I found out for sure that she was alive.
But that's a reality. That is a problem, but it's also a reality for everybody. If you don't like what we're saying, if you don't like what we're doing, where's your forms that we want in education? We're giving them a far better shot at success than anything. I'm not giving up on public schools. I want to drive them to excellence. And we got many good public schools in Minnesota, but we have some that aren't cutting it, and some that don't meet the needs of all of our children. That's the prime goal. What can we do to focus on the children? That's what it's all about. Oh, I don't know. I think people statewide need help. I think people statewide